Welcome to Shad's Guitar Show. Whether it's the gear or the players who made the gear famous, this podcast is about all things guitar. Well, hey there, everybody, and welcome into another exciting episode of Shad's Guitar Show. I am Shad, your host, as always, and glad that you are joining me today for a discussion on distortion, right? So distortion is something that we take as guitarists, or even bass players for that matter, we take this completely for granted because it's just a normal part of guitar playing these days is to hear overdrive or distortion. It's everywhere. And the ability to achieve this sound is almost endless. I mean, we have tons of different amplifiers that have lots of high gain or varying stages of gain. And there are literally hundreds, maybe even thousands of possible choices of overdrive or distortion pedals to achieve the sound that we hear in our heads. So distortion is a very, very normal part of guitar playing today, but it wasn't always that way. And as with everything else in gear-related stuff, there had to be a beginning somewhere. So I want to dive into the very earliest examples of distortion. And as we'll find out, it really was an accident and something that engineers were trying to eliminate, but guitar players grabbed onto and ultimately took it from the very beginning to what it is today. So today we're diving into one of the most important and accidental revolutions in electric guitar history, the very first use of distortion. Before distortion became really kind of an obsession, it was actually a problem. Blown speakers, overloaded tubes, and engineers were trying desperately to clean these things up. But guitar players, well, they heard magic. So today we're going to trace the roots of distortion pedals, where they came from, why they were invented, how they worked, and how they permanently changed music. All right, so chapter 1 we will call distortion before pedals, the accidental era. Long before anyone stepped on a box to add gain, distortion came from actually breaking things. In the late 40s and early 50s, guitarists discovered that if you turned small tube amps all the way up, overloaded preamp tubes, damaged speakers or transformers, you got clipping. And that is compressed, gritty, harmonically rich distortion. Some legendary, very early examples would be Willie Johnson with Howlin' Wolf and Link Wray, who famously poked holes in his speakers for the song Rumble. But this sound was unpredictable, unreliable, and sometimes flat dangerous. And engineers wanted to control it. But players, we wanted that dirt and we wanted it on demand. And that's where the pedal enters the story. So the first true distortion pedal was actually a fuzz pedal, and it is the Maestro FZ1 fuzz tone, and it was invented in 1962. Now, the Maestro FZ1 fuzz tone was originally designed to help guitarists imitate horn and brass sounds. The FZ1 uses germanium transistors to create a square wave clipping effect. At first, it didn't sell, but in 1965, that would all change with one song, a song called Satisfaction by the Rolling Stones. Keith Richards' opening riff ran straight through a Maestro FZ1, and suddenly, fuzz wasn't a mistake. It wasn't broken. It was the sound of rock music, and sales exploded overnight. So let's talk about the basics of the FZ1 circuit. So it was 3 germanium transistors. It had hard clipping, and it was battery-dependent tone, meaning that it was temperature sensitive. It was thin, raspy, gated sounding by modern standards. But historically, it literally changed everything. Next up was the tone bender from the mid-1960s. It was louder, thicker, and more aggressive, and developed by Gary Hurst in the UK. The tone bender MK1 and MK2 were used by legendary players like Jeff Beck, Jimmy Page, and Mick Ronson. This pedal redefined the fuzz idea. Fewer components, more sustain, a richer mid-range, and it moved distortion away from the novelty and firmly into an artistic expression. Without the tone bender, there would be no Led Zeppelin, glam rock wouldn't have existed, and hard rock might look very different today. Next up was the fuzz face, developed in 1966. So the Dallas Arbiter fuzz face was very simplistic. 2 transistors, that's it. But the magic was in how it reacted to the guitar. Probably the most famous user of the fuzz face is Jimi Hendrix, and he made it legendary. What made it special is it cleans up with the guitar's volume knob incredibly well, responds dynamically to picking strength. It's warm, woolly, and has germanium and silicone modes. This was distortion as expressive, not just saturation. Players could ride the edge of breakup in real time. By the late 1960s, fuzz was literally everywhere. But not everyone wanted chaos, and some players wanted grit without that total destruction, amp-like breakup, and smooth sustain. Early circuits began moving towards soft clipping, mimicking tube amps rather than obliterating the signal. These ideas eventually led to pedals like the Ibanez Tube Screamer and the Boss OD1, and overdrive as a category separate from fuzz. But it all started with those early distortion experiments. The earliest distortion pedals didn't just change tone, they changed music itself. They enabled rock, psychedelia, hard rock, and metal, shifted the guitar from a rhythm instrument to a lead voice, created the modern pedal industry. And every modern high-gain pedal, from boutique overdrives to digital modelers, traces its DNA back to the Maestro FZ1, the Tone Bender, and the Fuzz Face. Were they primitive? Yes. Were they perfect? Absolutely not. But revolutionary? Absolutely. So the next time you stomp on a distortion pedal, remember, that sound started as a mistake, then became a rebellion, and finally turned into an industry. If you've enjoyed this episode, please make sure to share it with a fellow gear nerd. Subscribe to me on YouTube at Shad's Guitar Show, and also follow me at Shad's Guitar Show on Instagram. Leave a comment, leave a like, do whatever you can to support the show if you're enjoying listening to it. I really appreciate the support. And until next time, keep playing, keep listening, and keep chasing great tone. And remember, the greatest guitarist is the one having the most fun.